Greetings and salutations, fellow dwellers. It is I, Drakaunus. You probably know me as one of the hosts of the Real Basement Dwellers podcast, a podcast where we review and talk about all manner of games that you play with friends, social games with social people, and whatnot. But what if you find yourself in a predicament? For instance, your friends are unavailable due to that pesky thing called life. Do you just curl up into a ball and wait for it to blow over? Don't be silly. Well, the history of video games has always had the occasional game you can play with a buddy. For the most part, a lot of them are single player, and there are tons of titles that are totally fun to play, even without friends. So while we live by our mantra of a game without friends is a game not worth playing, there are exceptions to that rule. And it is my duty as the lone dweller to talk about them. That's not all, though. I also spend lots of my free time binge-watching all manner of shows from the seemingly endless depths of the Netflix, Hulu, and Amazon Prime wells. Do you really want to hear me talk about video games, movies, and shows I like to watch on my own? Who knows? I'll give it a shot anyway, and see what happens. So without further ado, I present the first episode of The Lone Dweller. Hello, fellow dwellers. It is I, Darksiders. I am a gamer at heart. I always have been ever since the first time I fired up Super Mario on the Nintendo Entertainment System. I knew it was a hobby that would be a part of my life for the rest of my existence. I consider myself more of a casual gamer. While I do play a lot of games, I mostly stick to certain types. I know what kind of games bring me joy, and for all I know, my tastes might not jive with your own. But I am a firm believer that every video game will always have at least one redeeming quality. So I'm going to approach these reviews as objectively as possible, but with the goal of trying to find that one positive aspect lurking beneath the surface, no matter how bad a game may seem, or even if it requires me to step outside my usual comfort zone to try something new for a change. Steam is a wonderful thing. With all the amazing sales and a huge catalog of games they have available, it seems like there's always something I want to buy. The problem I run into, though, is when something I have even the slightest bit of interest in is suddenly on sale for like $5 or $10, I jump on that shit, even if I am in the middle of playing another game entirely. Because of this, I suffer from what I like to call Steam overload. I currently have 151 games in my Steam library, the same amount as the number of Generation 1 Pokemon. If you count Mew, of course. But what kind of a monster would leave out Mew? Look how adorable that guy is. Anyways, while I have played a decent amount, there are tons I have never even installed. So once I finish a game I'm currently playing, I will scroll down my list and figure out what untapped gem I should finally dust off and take for a spin. In this particular instance, I found myself drawn to the game Darksiders. This is a game I have owned since 2015. And I've always had a strong interest to give it a whirl. But what finally got me on board was the fact that they just released a remastered version that was given to me for free since I owned the original, which automatically gives you major props in my book. Thanks, THQ Nordic. It's always refreshing when a company doesn't try to nickel and dime you for stuff that should have been given to you as an update since you purchased the product originally. So let's take a look at Darksiders, the Warmastered Edition. The year is 2005. While the world was wondering if Carrie Underwood would be the next American Idol, Vigil Games was founded by Joe Mangiaria and David Adams. Joe Mangiaria, affectionately known as Joe Mad by his fanbase, is most famous for his work at Marvel Comics on the Uncanny X-Men series. David Adams, on the other hand, started his career as a game designer, and is a prime example of how ever-changing the industry is. His first order of business was founding a studio called Stone Jackal Studio, where he then moved on and created yet another studio called Realm Interactive, which was then bought by NCSoft. From there, David left NCSoft, in which he finally undertook forming visual games, and their first project was Darksiders, an idea the creative director Joe Mad came up with. While it has similarities to other games that came out at the time, Darksiders wasn't directly inspired by anything in particular. He just wanted to make a darker, more mature action-adventure game. In 2006, Vigil Games was bought by the gaming powerhouse that was THQ, a company famous for such titles as Destroy All Humans, Red Faction, and Saints Row, among many others. The development of Darksiders continued unhindered, and with the backing of THQ, its outlook was quite promising. In 2007, they made the official announcement and unveiling of Darksiders to the public, which generated a decent amount of hype from a community of gamers coming fresh off the God of War train. After 5 years of development and a change of ownership, Darksiders released January 7th, 2010 on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, and then later released on the PC on September 23rd, 2010. Reception for the game was quite high, making it a successful game. Enough to spark a sequel, but does it stand up to the test of time? Let's take a look. As long as time has existed, the kingdoms of heaven and hell have always battled one another, neither side being able to overpower the other, just endless war with no respite. Out of the ashes of destruction, the charred council emerged, beings whose sole purpose was to keep the balance of the world in check. In order to enforce such rules and regulations, a band of warriors was created, the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. During this never-ending conflict, another kingdom arose, the Kingdom of Man. The Charred Council agreed that this new kingdom would be integral for the balance of the world, but they were still young and needed protection. So they brokered a peace between the kingdoms of heaven and hell. Once the Kingdom of Man was evolved and prepared enough, the 7 seals would be broken, and Judgment Day would be upon the world, and the 3 kingdoms would battle it out on its surface. So the game starts as war has just been awakened, being called down to Earth to take part in its apocalypse. Angels and demons are ripping each other apart. Humans are fleeing in terror, unsure what the hell is happening. It's your standard tutorial fare, slowly teaching you the different mechanics of the game as you battle your way through the city. The cool part is war is a force to be reckoned with, as he should be. He is at full power, allowing you to destroy the angels and demons with ease. Your main source of attack is the huge sword War carries on his back, called the Chaos Eater. All it takes is one simple button to unleash powerful combos upon your enemies, which feels quite fluid and very familiar if you are a fan of the God of War games. When an enemy gets weakened enough, a QuickTime button prompt pops up, allowing War to complete an epic finishing move animation, which usually is quite bloody. Also, much like God of War. When you are overwhelmed by enemies, you can unleash your Chaos form, which essentially turns you into a motherfucking Balrog, without that pesky weakness to wizards and bridges. In that form, you are immune to damage and deal powerful attacks, demolishing your opponents with ease.
We will not yield!
As you continue your rampage, you'll start to notice something is wrong. War's power suddenly gets weaker. Something clearly is not right with this picture.
The 7th seal was not broken!
Abaddon!
Turns out, someone prematurely set off the end of days. They clearly didn't get the memo.
The law has been broken. And so have you, horseman.
So after epically failing, you awaken again in front of the charred council. Not so much the almighty powerful beings you expected, but I bet they would make a great place to hide your long-lost pirate treasure. X marks the spot. So the council is all pissed that war not only prematurely started the apocalypse, but also helped Helen the Great Destroyer destroy the world, as destroyers ought to do. War is completely confused about this because he swears he heard the call, and being a very honorable dude, he's pretty angry at that fact. The council wants to kill him, but he convinces them to let him go down to Earth and figure out what the hell is happening. With a side of sweet, sweet vengeance, of course. To keep an eye on the control of war, he's attached to the Watcher, a demon who acts like your guide. Think like Navi in The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, but with a much cooler and infinitely less annoying voice.
Over here!
Hey, listen!
So from there, you meet up with Volgrum, a demon who loves consuming human souls. Seems stereotypical, but whatever. The souls you collect in the game come in 3 types. The green souls heal you. The blue souls are your money or currency. And the yellow souls fill up your wrath bar, which is War's magic meter that he utilizes to cast different spells to aid him in combat, whether they are offensive or defensive spells. Volgrum likes the blue souls. He acts as an item shop, but also upgrading and expanding War's abilities, which is where some of your RPG elements come in. Most of your abilities you have to buy from Volgrum, but the more you use weapons, the more they level up as well, so there is a form of experience hidden beneath the surface a bit.
Please take your time.
So you gather the souls Volgrum wants. Remove the obstacle in your path.
The horn call of my ancestors, awakened at last from the dreamless sleep. Then we are free. None are free while the Destroyer still breathes. The Destroyer, yes. To his service we are bound, though enemies we remain. So his enemies we call friend. Pass now, friend. Must bring victory.
Oh, they certainly look like big, strong hands, don't they? The final part of what I consider the opening setup of the game is freeing a demon known as Samael.
Perhaps there is a way, but you will need to get inside the Destroyer's spire. The tower is guarded by 4 of his chosen. Bring me their hearts, and ask me no questions.
I'm totally sure that's all he needs those hearts for, just to open a door and not for some other ulterior nefarious purposes. From there, the game opens up and starts to really remind me of another game I hold dear to my heart, The Legend of Zelda. The lairs of the 4 chosen ones are essentially like the temples in Zelda. You need a certain ability to get to them. Then once you get there, you obtain another object or weapon that you can use in combat, but also to solve the puzzles of the temple, which leads you to the boss fights, that also require utilizing a special item to figure out how to deal with them. Another puzzle in and of itself. Using all of these items to solve the puzzles and defeat bosses is a lot of fun. Though none of the puzzles are too hard, there was an occasion where I had to stop and think for a moment before I figured out what the game wanted me to do. But it is moments like that when you finally figure it out with no help from online guides or other people. It is a very rewarding feeling. So that is Darksiders in a nutshell. But let's break it down into more specific categories. These categories are the parts of a video game that I find to be most crucial. But like I said, I always try to find the good in every game because I hate to be one of those reviewers who just says, "It sucks," and give no actual critiques in these specific areas. The game plays very much like most hack-and-slash games. You have a main form of attack with the Chaos Blade that allows you to do certain combos when combined with other movements, whether it be the other buttons or the dash movement or even the analog sticks. A lot of people often find these types of games highly repetitive and can be boring after a certain amount of time. In this particular instance, though it is technically repetitive, I am always thoroughly entertained by the different ways I can destroy and maim all of the angels and demons that get in my way. When a new enemy is introduced, it is great trying to figure out what combo of things works best against them. I can't stress this enough though, you are going to need to master that dodge ability. It's the only thing keeping you alive most of the time. As the game progresses, enemies start to get tougher and hit harder. Then they start throwing hordes of little guys mixed with big guys at you, making you have to adjust your strategy to whatever the situation calls for. Playing on PC, I didn't use the keyboard and mouse at all, so I can't say how well it would work on that. In this type of game, the controller is definitely the way to go for me. I use a wireless Xbox One controller for most of my gaming, and it integrates perfectly with the game. The controls feel natural and fluid, and I didn't really have any issues adapting to it right from the get-go. For a game that came out 7 years ago, this game looks beautiful. Sure, they just released the Warmastered Edition, which has higher resolution textures, but there are plenty of games with updated textures that still look dated in my opinion. I think what really makes the game work is the stylized graphics. It feels very much like a comic book, which I am sure having Joe Matt as creative director had a huge impact on. The character designs aren't realistic, but that is a good thing. These are all supernatural beings in this game, so having them look realistic would really fit. It gives them that otherworldly look and feel. The level designs are also very well done. I found myself quite a few times just stopping, climbing up to a high point, and just taking a look at the world around me. They do a remarkable job of capturing that apocalyptic Earth vibe for sure. I wasn't ever really bored by my surroundings either. Every area and every room had a unique look, like it was purposely designed from the ground up and not just recycled stock images. Even the desert was interesting, despite the fact deserts aren't always the most interesting things to look at. I was running the game at full 4K resolution, and it truly was a lovely thing to behold. I have always been a big fan of the whole supernatural apocalyptic setting in most things, so I find the story to be very interesting and engaging. I find myself just as curious and determined as War to figure out what the fuck happened. All of the characters are dynamic and all have their own motivations for doing what they do, even if those motivations aren't quite clear by the end of the game. But I suppose that is what sequels are for, to expand and elaborate on them more. I already explained my immediate distrust of Samael, but he was a means to achieve my goal. It's not like I have a choice in the matter. And restoring War's honor is far more important than demons and their questionable motivations. I was fully engaged in the story from start to finish. In the end, only left me wanting more for sure. One aspect that makes a story that much better is the voice actors telling it. I have to say, hands down, this is a fantastic cast of voice actors they have in this game. Every character's voice fit them perfectly and was very well performed. I hadn't played too many games with Liam O'Brien, or at least I didn't know I played too many games with Liam O'Brien as a voice actor, but he is fast becoming one of my favorite in the industry. I find myself playing a game and getting excited to recognize his voice. While he has a fantastic range and lots of different voices, I have to say I really love the one he puts on for War.
I fought powerless against the demons, and still you accuse me?
Every line War says sounds so fucking fantastic. As a voice actor myself, I would give anything to be able to mimic that beautiful sound. I heeded the call. It isn't death you should be afraid of. Yeah, well, you get the idea. And of course, the Watcher, voiced by Mark Hamill. Though it is pretty much his Joker voice, there is a reason he is the best Joker voice ever.
Looks like our trajectory was a little off. Not so fast, horseman. Let's lay down a few ground rules. Until this is over, you're a dog on a leash. I say bark, you bark. And if I have to kick you, you'd better not bare your teeth. Understand? Or should I teach you to play dead? Good boy.
That voice he puts on is phenomenal. It is right up there in my favorite voices of all time as well. Of course, no one will ever dethrone my number one pick, which is of course any character voiced by the late Tony Jay.
Now that I command Hexadecimal's power, none can stand against me.
You did that? To your own sister?
Yes. It's rather good, isn't it?
There's just something about that deep, sophisticated sounding voice that always makes his character sound fantastic. I have played plenty of games where the voice acting was robotic and horrific, lacking emotion and feeling. So I love the fact that voice acting in games has gotten so much better than it once was. I say give those voice actors what they want. I'd hate to see them go on strike and go back to games without them. Fun factor. I have to say, without a doubt, that this game had a full fun factor from start to finish. As I write up this review at the moment, I already have Darksiders 2 downloading in the background, so I can jump into that as soon as I am able. I honestly even like it better than God of War. Don't get me wrong, I love God of War, but this game just stood out to me more. This game truly stands the test of time. I'm sure even if I played the original version instead of the Warmastered one, I would have enjoyed it just as much. It's definitely one of those situations where I'm kicking myself for not having played it sooner, considering it came out almost 7 years ago. It was definitely a good buy to get both Darksiders and Darksiders 2 for $10. I would have easily paid full price for it knowing what I do now, though.
To hell with your claims! The seals were broken! I was summoned!